Do you ever walk into a house and feel like it's watching you? Not haunted exactly, but like it's holding its breath. Well, that was number 10. It was supposed to be a simple weekend house sit, Friday to Monday. 2 cats, a few plants, and a polite but weird note about not touching the mirror in the lounge. By the time I left, I was seriously considering salt circles and selling every reflective surface that I owned. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's start at the beginning. I arrived late on Friday afternoon, golden hour, when the light turns everything syrupy and surreal, making floors look like features. Even the gnome in the garden, with half of its hat missing, almost looked dignified. The street was quiet, too quiet, not peaceful but more courtroom jury just before the verdict kind of quiet. The house was modest, weatherboard, faint scent of jasmine and lemon floor cleaner, and something else, something still. Gabby and Gary, the homeowners, were in their late 50s and were the kind of couple who spent their weekends trawling second-hand shops for vintage finds and odd curiosities. They'd already left for a wedding in Melbourne. Their note sat on the kitchen counter. Thanks so much, Sash, for looking after the house and the fur babies. Please help yourself to anything. The cats eat at 6 p.m. and please don't touch the mirror in the lounge. It's temperamental. P.S. The wine in the fridge is for you. Enjoy. At the time I thought the wine was a thank you gift, but later I'd suspect it was a survival kit. Nix, the sleek black cat, met me in the kitchen with a look that said, "Who sent you?" Fidget, the bug-eyed tabby, did a lap of the house like chaos on springs. I gave them my usual introductory house sitter spiel. I'm your snack lady and litter concierge until Monday. Any problems, take it up with management. Nix blinked slowly, which I took as cautious approval. Fidget head-butted my leg and then immediately darted off like he'd been caught in a moment of sincerity. The lounge was channeling some serious grandma vibes, all heavy curtains, crocheted doilies and floral armchairs that looked like they'd hosted 1,000 cups of tea and one too many polite family arguments. It was part retirement village, part daytime rerun of that show where they hunt for antiques. And then there was the mirror. It was large, brass-framed and leaned just slightly to the left, enough to bother me. I took a step closer. That crooked lean was only a few millimeters off, 5 maybe, but my inner Virgo screamed from the depths of my soul to fix it. Who lives with a mirror 5 millimeters off center and doesn't do something about it? It felt like it was daring me, one smug little tilt away from perfection. But then I remembered the note, "Please don't touch or move the mirror." And just like that I backed off. Crooked, smug, unsettling. I had no choice but to leave the mirror exactly as it was. Nix stared at the mirror like it owed her money, cold, unmoving, and clearly holding a grudge. Maybe the crooked tilt bothered her too. We both stood there, equally offended by its left-hand lean, like it had no intention of explaining itself to anyone. I backed out slowly and went off to find my bedroom. After I'd unpacked, I wandered out to the garden and snapped a quick selfie to send to my family, proof of life and all that. Golden hour glow, and behind me, a lemon tree leaning so far to the left it looked like it was trying to escape. I meant to send the photo to my family as a check-in, but I never did. In the early hours of Saturday morning, I woke suddenly, one of those jolts like your body remembers something your brain hasn't caught up with yet. I lay there, still wrapped in the warmth of sleep, but something felt wrong, off-kilter, like the room had shifted in my absence. I reached for my phone on the bedside table and the screen lit up. 3:11 a.m. A sound moved through the house, not loud but deliberate, like someone walking slowly from room to room, dragging their fingertips along the walls. I held my breath. Nix crouched low near the door. Fidget was nowhere in sight. The air had that strange weight, like something had slipped through an open door I hadn't noticed. Eventually the sound faded, not all at once, but in careful, deliberate pieces, like it knew it was being listened to. I stayed frozen, every sense straining for one final hint of movement, but none came. The quiet returned, but too thick to feel natural, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort you, it just watches back. I lay there, rigid under the covers, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Just a weird old house, and I just had a tired mind. Eventually, exhaustion outweighed fear. I didn't fall asleep so much as drift, like sinking slowly beneath the surface of something I didn't really trust. When I woke up, it was well into Saturday morning. I lay in bed longer than usual, pretending the night hadn't happened, like staying still would somehow keep things normal. The light outside was bright, which felt like a relief. I moved quietly through the morning, avoiding mirrors and any corners that felt like they were watching. I made some toast, answered a few emails, and tried to anchor myself in the ordinary. The house behaved, mostly. A few odd creaks, one too many glances over my shoulder, but nothing I could call unusual out loud. By the time dinner rolled around, I had almost convinced myself I was just being dramatic. Dinner was cat food for the kitties and a pesto pasta salad for me. Fidget inhaled his dinner, and Nix barely touched hers, too busy watching the lounge room and then glancing at the ceiling every so often like it might cave in. Then the air changed, not just a chill, it was like the house exhaled something that didn't belong. The kind of cold that settles under your skin. Something in the atmosphere had shifted and every part of me knew it wasn't right. The hallway light flickered. The wall clock in the kitchen had run out of batteries at 3:11. I set up my iPad on the kitchen counter and streamed the local news, council controversies, weather events and petty scandals, the kind of drama that somehow felt soothing. Even the story about the councillor's bin being stolen again felt reassuringly mundane. That night I triple-checked the locks like a professional OCD locksmith with trust issues. I drew the curtains and curled up in bed like a cinnamon scroll. Nix lingered in the hallway and Fidget hid beneath the armchair in my room. I put on some low-stakes drama involving housewives from places I'd never visit with problems that I'd never have. The kind of show where arguments start over cheese boards and end in confessional tears. It was exactly what I needed, something ridiculous enough to drown out everything else. The sound washed over me as I drifted into that uneasy, almost sleep, the kind where you're still listening just in case. Then something changed, a sound. Not footsteps, Not quite, but a rhythm, slow, too steady to be the wind, but too soft to be the plumbing. A presence you could almost mistake for movement if your mind was already leaning that way. It crept in right as I stirred awake, like it had been waiting for me. I reached for my phone, more out of habit than anything else, and there it was again. 3:11 a.m. Of course it was. Nyx crept into the doorway, low to the ground, eyes fixed past me, her body held like a bow pulled taut. Fidget followed, silent, then froze beside the bed, ears angled and every hair alert. I held my breath and told myself stories, possums maybe, old pipes, just an old house doing old house things, but deep down I knew better. The sound lingered just long enough to feel deliberate, not retreating, just slipping back into whatever space it had come from, like it knew its job was done for now. I stayed still, every nerve tuned to the silence it left behind, that heavy, unnatural quiet that doesn't rest, it waits. Eventually I sank beneath the covers again, not because I was no longer scared, but because I didn't know what else to do. And somehow Sunday morning arrived anyway. I woke on Sunday groggy, the sort of tired that doesn't feel earned. In the hallway, 4 tiny cat figurines that had been on the bookshelf the night before were now lined up perfectly across the floor, tail to tail, all facing the lounge like a little conga line. Well, I hadn't done that unless I'd started redecorating in my sleep. I sure as heck wasn't about to touch them with my bare hands either, so I went into the kitchen and grabbed a pair of salad tongs and very carefully returned each figurine to the shelf one by one. The whole thing had the same shaky finesse as someone using chopsticks for the first time. Nyx watched from the doorway like she'd seen it all before. Fidget lurked behind a shoe rack, suspicious and wide-eyed. I popped my head in the lounge room and checked the mirror. Still crooked, still smug, like it knew something that I didn't. That quiet, self-satisfied tilt, like it had settled into the perfect angle just to annoy me. Not menacing exactly, just superior, like it had already decided how the weekend would go. Except now I wasn't entirely sure it hadn't moved, just a fraction, a whisper of a shift, but enough to set off that uneasy ripple in my gut. Maybe that's what 3:11 was all about. Not just a time, but a signal, a door creaking open, a window flexing. Maybe something had stepped through just for a look around. To distract myself, I made breakfast and opened Facebook on my phone. A memory post surfaced. Brunch with friends exactly 1 year ago. Posted at 3:11 p.m. Another coincidence maybe, or maybe not. Sometime that afternoon the lights began flickering. Not dramatically, just small pulses, barely noticeable unless you were paying attention. Room by room they blinked, briefly, sequentially, like the house was testing something. When they finally stopped, the silence that followed didn't feel like a relief, it felt like a pause. I moved through the house, turning on lights one by one, not because I needed them, but because the shadows had begun to feel just a little too curious. Even the pantry light went on, just in case. While looking for a can opener in a kitchen drawer, I found an old egg timer. In faded marker, someone had written 3:11 on it. At this point I half expected the fridge to be set to 3.11 degrees Celsius and start whispering my name. I just slid it back into the drawer like it was radioactive. That night I tried to act normal, or at least like someone who hadn't been woken twice by invisible pacing at 3:11 a.m. After dinner I made a cup of tea and took it back to the bedroom with me, sipping slowly while repacking a few things into my bag, double-checking that nothing had been left behind. Eventually I sat on the edge of my bed with my tea that had gone cold beside me. I played some soft ambient music on my iPad. Nothing with lyrics, just enough to keep the quiet from filling up with thoughts. Nix perched on the windowsill and Fidget stood guard at the door. I ended up hopping under the covers until the weight of it all finally blurred me into sleep. I must have dozed off eventually until I woke again. 3:11 a.m. lit up my phone screen. I didn't wake up to a sound this time. It was a pressure, like being watched from the outside. The cats were already alert, as if they'd never gone to sleep at all. Whatever this was, it wasn't finished yet. I stayed frozen, half upright in bed, every instinct screaming to stay still. Nix didn't move and Fidget didn't blink. We all just waited. And then, just like before, the pressure faded. Not gone, just recoiling. I lay there for what felt like hours, staring at the soft glow of the bedside lamp which I had switched on. Waiting for movement, waiting for sound. Eventually my eyes got heavy again. Sleep came, not like a comfort, but like a surrender. On Monday morning the house felt heavier than a lead blanket soaked in secrets. One tiny cat figurine from the shelf had fallen off again. Just one, flat on its side like it had fainted from the drama. The lounge room door was ajar. I peeked inside and the mirror looked fogged, not on the surface but from the inside, like someone had leaned in and let out a long sigh, the kind you give when you're bored in a staff meeting, and fogged the glass just for something to do. And in that impossible mist, 3:11 appeared, neat, intentional, the way someone might write on a fogged-up mirror. I stared at it, that number, and finally let myself wonder, what is 3:11? It didn't feel like a warning, it felt maybe like a window, not just a time, but a moment of permeability, like the boundary between this side of the mirror and whatever's on the other side thins at exactly 3:11. I reached forward and wiped it with my sleeve, and then immediately froze. Gabby's note in the kitchen etched in my head, please don't cover or move the mirror. Great, now I'd gone and wiped it. Did that count as touching it? Was it better or worse that I used my sleeve instead of my hand? The fog remained, unmoved, unchanged, like the mirror had absorbed my effort, considered it and decided to ignore me entirely. I stumbled back, heart tapping against my ribs like it was looking for an exit. I needed air, so I ran outside and sat in the garden where things still made sense. Lemon tree, sunshine, fresh air that didn't feel like it had an opinion about me. I tried to pretend everything was fine, but I didn't quite succeed. By midday, I'd packed, fed the cats one last time, and left a thank you note that felt more like a farewell. As I headed to the front door, reached for the keys. My phone rang. No caller ID. I answered. Silence. Then a slow breath. And then a voice. Sash. Soft, measured, like someone was testing the shape of my name with their mouth. The hallway light flickered. The lounge door creaked. A draft moved past me, cold and oddly focused, like it had intent. I didn't speak. I didn't hang up. I just stood there, heart thudding so. I didn't speak. I didn't hang up. I just stood there, frozen, heart thudding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Was it Gabby? Was it one of my friends? A prank? A glitch? But no, I knew it wasn't any of those things. I knew it in the way that you know not to touch a hot stove, instinctively. I should have run out of the house, but something about hearing my name like that from no one, from everywhere, pushed me back inside the house instead. I headed back into the lounge, each step quiet and heavy. The room felt different now, not darker, just dense. The mirror stood as before, crooked and waiting. Maybe I thought if I faced it, acknowledged it, something would end. Maybe I was tired of not knowing. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I could have sworn my own reflection blinked, but slower than me. Not out of sync, exactly, more like it was considering something, measuring me, matching me, but reluctantly. I stumbled back and rushed out of the room and didn't look back. I rushed out the front door, closing it behind me quietly, like I didn't want to wake something. Back home on Monday night, I was enjoying the comforts of dinner, warm pajamas and every single light on. I didn't care how much electricity I was using. It was essential for my sanity after what I'd just been through. Gabby text. Thanks again, Sash, for looking after the place. Nix misses you. She won't leave your room. Would you consider house sitting for us again soon? I stared at the message for a long time, weighing up the cost of therapy and whether my insurance covered emotional damage. And then I replied, if the dates work, I'm happy to discuss. I do book up fast, so let me know when you're thinking, which in my head actually translated to, I'll be unavailable and emotionally on aeroplane mode until further notice. After replying to Gabby, I was scrolling through my phone and spotted the garden selfie I'd taken on Friday afternoon at number 10. Timestamp 3:11 p.m. But I hadn't arrived until after 4. I know I was filling up petrol at 3:11 as I remember looking at my watch at that exact time. I would have had the receipt to prove it. I was still 20 minutes from Gabby's house, so how could... I zoomed in. There, in the lounge window behind me, was a face. Still, pale, watching. It looked like me, almost. The same version I'd seen of me in the mirror, the one with the blink half a second behind mine, like it was behind on time, or waiting for the next 3:11. I then double-checked my own mirror and threw my phone across the room. A month later, life resumed, sort of. Then one morning I opened my calendar and saw a reminder that I didn't remember setting. Pick up groceries, 3:11 p.m. I deleted it immediately and whispered no, as if it mattered. I never shop at that time anyway, it's always peak traffic and school pickup time. But this wasn't about traffic or timing. It was that number again, 311. Every time I thought I was imagining things, it found a new way to appear, like it was waiting for me to slip. Not today, not yet. Later that night, I was passing my hallway mirror and I caught a flicker. Not quite me. Still, pale, smiling. I blinked and it was gone, but the silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt unfinished. That was the mirror at number 10. If you enjoyed this story, there are more eerie, soft-spoken tales by a house sitter coming soon. Feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, or just keep the lights low and let the quiet in. Until next time.